Well, hello, whoa, everybody, and that's okay. We're gonna be. I was gonna be showing more of my face, but we're gonna be looking mostly at this, so I zoomed in. Anyway, hello everybody, welcome back. I'm AJ O'Neill. I'm gonna throw up chat just in case we catch anybody in the chat today. Although I'm not really thinking the purpose of this is so much to. This is gonna be fairly short. Famous last words. But I wanted to talk about this concerned.tech because, as many of you know, and many of you perhaps don't know, I am uh, the cryptophobe, right? I am the person who has always been saying these things are scam, they're garbage. I found a singular exception in Dash, but for the most part, my belief has been that blockchains are Rube Goldberg machines and that they solve a problem we don't have. I was at the Cryptopia conference just recently, and I really tried to give an honest listen to people and tried to understand what it was they thought they were solving or what problems they were perceiving. And a lot of it was just people literally, they don't understand how money works or how economies work or how technology works. A lot of it was, well, it's good because I can get back an investment. Okay, well, where does that investment come from? Because if something goes from A to B, if something goes from B to C, it must have somehow gotten from A to B. And so if it's just one big, pardon my French, circle jerk of people throwing money back and forth at each other, and then yeah, this is a problem. So I've read through this already. I'm not going to read through it all here. I added a little bit of highlighting thanks to my being able to right click, inspect, edit as HTML, and insert a few marks. But basically, there are 26 computer scientists, the most renowned of which is probably, I don't know if he's actually a computer scientist or just a technologist. I don't know what category he falls into. But Bruce Schneier is someone who I appreciate and believe that he's got a good head on his shoulders and has a pragmatic approach to cryptographic problems. He's the name that I recognize most on this list. Now, if you recognize someone else here more, that you think more people would recognize, you let me know. But these are 26 people have signed this letter that basically says cryptocurrencies are a sham, and and the arguments are all on point. That most of these technologies are scams. Most of them are basically, scam is kind of a tough word because if you know what you're participating in, so you could call it money laundering. If you want to move money from one place to another and you don't want to do it without government oversight, is that always necessarily money laundering? I suppose it is. If you but as a grown adult, if if there are places where prostitution can be legal, and gambling is legal, certainly grown adults who, and I'm not saying that it's at that scale or that it's even in that way. I'm just saying that if we have places where these things that are considered vile and egregious are allowable between consenting adults, then certainly just a generic exchange of um, a belief, of a value belief in a I don't know what to call it. I hesitate to call it an asset, but an exchange between adults who are consenting into what they're doing, just because that there's a monetary attachment or a perceived, because it's not even like how real is this, but there's a perceived, well, how real is the dollar, right? That things are worth what they're worth because that's what we believe. That's kind of the definition of economics, right? And so if people choose to participate in something knowingly, which I think is what's happening with a lot of these investors, because at the Cryptopia conference, talking to lots of different people, I kind of came to an understanding that, uh, yeah, it's really dumb to offer a token to people for playing video games. But if you're trying to get money out of one place into another place, then you have this diffusion of responsibility with a blockchain where if somebody just kind of wants the government's hand out of their pocket, you could spend all of that money into some worthless token that people earn through playing video games, and then you have a place for it that's kind of shielded, right? So I'm actually getting a little bit deeper into this than I wanted to, and but it does go to prove their point. So this narrative peddled by those with a financial stake that the technologies represent a positive financial innovation. I disagree. I agree and disagree with this. So I meant to say I disagree with the peddling is the first thing I was saying, and then I realized that this is already in the negative. But so there's a difference between technology that exists and technology that people use. So I'll give the example of DocuSign. Right now, if you DocuSign something, there's no real signature. There's nothing really that ties it to you. It's a generic font that's put onto a PDF that is at best associated with your email address. There's nothing, as far as I'm aware, and I could be wrong, cryptographically valid about a DocuSign or a HelloSign or any of those things. I don't know how any of that stands up in court. Ostensibly it does because they track your IP address. They do use if you use Brave or some browser that doesn't enable all permissions by default, you'll notice that they use things like tilt tracking, geolocation tracking. They basically turn on every sensor that the browser has, they do turn on. And so they can claim that any data that they have was represented by your browser as far as your location or whatever. So there's a little bit there, but the idea of an NFT is not wholly bad. It seems really dumb for the things that it's used for, but just as ECDSA signatures, as far as I'm aware, were not common before the blockchain legitimized elliptic curves and got those algorithms put into many different programming languages. The idea of something like an NFT, although most of the scammy stuff is stupid, the concept of digitally signing something and proving ownership and having an identity, a wallet where it can be stored, these are concepts that I agree with from a technical perspective, even if the technical implementation that's chosen isn't one that's the most efficient. But we're looking at nothing. We have nothing to secure digital assets or verify ownership for the most part. There's no widely deployed solution. So if a hype train takes some solution that works at all in place of a nothing, yeah, it's stupid and I'll complain about it, but it is better than the nothing, right? TLS is better than no encryption, despite the political issues of TLS and the security vulnerabilities at the political level of the system, not the technical level. And then the other thing, what I really wanted to drive towards with this, so I mostly agree with it. Let's say that I 100% agree with what they're saying. Well, let's say that there's nothing that is going to come out of any of this blockchain or NFT or Web3, which I think there's very close to nothing. I think that it's less than 1% is going to be value, probably less than a tenth of 1% is going to have any real lasting value over the next 20 years, something that positively impacts human life on the planet in the way that the telephone did, for example, and the internet. But the problem that I have with this, and I should have led with this, and Josh, maybe we can take a bit of this and put it up front. But the problem I have with this is kind of the approach. So for all of their accurate points, there's no real technical detail in here, despite these 26 people being technical people. All of this is rather layman terminology. It's put very well. The wording is very good, but it's all quite vague because it doesn't describe any specific technology. It just describes a category. And then down here at the bottom, they give external writing and research. And so this is all of this different content that gives you more technical pieces. But in the document, they don't actually give any definition of what a blockchain is or a cryptocurrency or Web3, and yet they ask for regulation on it. And I think that this is potentially catastrophic. I don't want regulation on these things because you might remember a time when there was a group of DMCA activists, a couple of companies were trying to get it passed into federal law that an IP address could be banned if that IP address had traffic associated with DMCA infringement. And this would have been horrific because hundreds, typically thousands even of websites are hosted at a single IP address. So if there's one violating IP address and you were to block the whole, or one violating website, and you were to block the whole IP address, you're attacking far more innocents than, and there's essentially no harm in piracy. And I say that with caveat, because you're looking at high school kids that don't have any money, right? If you can choose to pay $1 to get something that's high fidelity, that's exactly what you wanted, or you can maybe get a virus, or maybe get a really low quality, crappy version for free, the dollar isn't really hard to justify. And so that's why I say that the piracy is harmless. There needs to be some level of enforcement to it, but not at the detriment. You make a few examples out of a few college students, whatever. I mean, I don't think that was necessarily right when it was being done, but they made examples, they scared some people, whatever. But to attack the innocent is something I would take issue with. And that's what I see here, is who's to say what something is a blockchain versus something that is, as they even mention in the paper here, simply what do they call it? Let's see. They said something about technology. Oh, here we go. Append-only digital ledgers are not a new innovation. So if you've got an append-only digital ledger, and then some blockchains aren't necessarily append-only digital ledgers. I think that's kind of the idea of it, but I think that there's some implementations that bend or break the rules on that. So where you have these buzzwords that are manipulated at will because they can be, and they're not using the correct computer science term. And in the case of this, there is no correct computer science term because the thing didn't exist. It was invented out of whole cloth. But I guess distributed append-only digital ledger would be an appropriate computer sciencey term. But my point is that if you don't have a specific target to say what type of thing is legal or illegal and which type of thing used in what type of way, that's the other thing that's really important. Because if you can use a force multiplier, I won't say the other word because we're on YouTube here, but that's one of the things that goes boom. If you use one of those, there's a way to use it there's many ways to use it that are appropriate and safe and legal. And there are many ways to use it that are not appropriate and not safe and illegal. And we have to characterize the use of the technology, not just the technology itself. And I think that we need free speech. We need the right of speech, right of arms, and right of commerce. And I think that we've always had the least right of commerce, maybe throughout all of history, maybe more so than the other two. I'm not, maybe I shouldn't say that because I'm not that well versed in history, but it seems that we've never really, I think at the beginning of America, we had more free commerce. We don't now. We look a lot more like North Korea than we look like, I mean, it's kind of hard to say this without a little bit of backstory, but anyway, I think that this is the real thing, is that this can be a segue to further attack commerce. We need to be able, as adults, to decide how we want to transact and what things are worth to us, and to have a system of record that we can use to be able to track between consenting adults what type of transactions that they value at what value and how they're willing to trade those, essentially having a digital IOU system. I don't think that that's bad. I think that's good. I don't know, there's very few implementations that exist right now that I agree with, but I think fundamentally that idea is good. And if we were to say, okay, we're going to try to block the technology and block the potential uses of it, yeah, there's going to be good and bad uses. But we also, I think as far as investors go, when there's that $45 billion drop, yeah, there were some people that had their whole life savings. Oh, hey, Keon, thanks. There were some people that had their whole life savings in digital currencies. And this is a bad idea. No investor who's no true Scotsman, is going to say, hey, put all of your eggs in this one basket. You put 100% of your stock in Tesla, right? That's not really what's going to happen. Someone that's if you're willing to risk it, and you want to put all your eggs in one basket, you can make that choice if you personally feel confident in it. The problem there kind of becomes that then you may become a product of not a product, but a part of the system in which my tax dollars have to pay for you losing your life savings, which, on whole, maybe that's not so bad, but it's kind of bad. I mean, I need to be shielded from your bad decisions as well, and I don't know. I don't know what the right solution is. But I definitely don't think that the right solution is to say, hey, legislate this stuff away. We need to act now to protect investors. I don't think that we need to protect the investors so much. I think investors make smart decisions and dumb decisions, but it's not really the true millionaires, meaning that have liquid cash in millions of dollars, that I'm so worried about. And yeah, grandmas to some extent, but again, I don't think it's going to be huge. The global financial marketplace, severe risk. There was a $45 billion loss, and yeah, we're going to feel it, but I don't think that we're going to come to a collapse of the economy because of a $45 billion base. I think it's something near 50% of the whole cryptocurrency marketplace was just lost in a day because of basically some scammy algorithmic trading, where part of the way that this system works and why it's so dangerous is, again, that circling, where you're there's a technical term for it in the financial industry. I don't remember what it's called, but basically you're investing in one thing, you increase its value, then you kind of was it lean that or use that as collateral asset to invest in another thing, and then that bumps up its value, and then you collateralize that to invest in another thing. And that's a lot of what this from what I gathered at the Cryptopia conference, just talking with different people, that's not what was said, but that seemed to be what was being read between the lines, is that there's so many of these assets. And let me explain one more thing, and I'll try not to go off too much more of a tangent on this. Oh, and let me check out the. I don't think that this is virtue signaling. I think that I mean, maybe it is, and I don't know what collateralized debt obligation means, but so what I'm seeing is that you get guaranteed 4% interest as a smart contract if you put US dollars into something else, into one of these decentralized exchanges. And the way that it works is they basically need lots of different money and lots of different tokens so that they have liquid. So think if you just wanted to trade between US dollars and pesos. If you want to trade between the two, you have to have a supply of US dollars and a supply of pesos on both ends of where the traders are. So there need to be some traders in America with dollars and pesos, and there need to be some traders in Mexico with dollars and pesos. Because if you literally don't have the dollars and pesos, then you can't exchange. So if you can get someone to loan you dollars and pesos, and then you just reconcile at the end of the day, then you have fluid cash to move. The value stays constant. You're not really risking any money because the person either has the dollars or the pesos that they're exchanging and you're exchanging. You just need a liquidity pool, so to speak. That's the term that they were using for these decentralized exchanges. And so they need people to put money into these liquidity pools so that then they can exchange them, and then you get a guaranteed return, because the money in some shape or form was always there, even if it wasn't in the form that you had staked it in the liquidity pool. And so this is just kind of like money changing internationally already works anyway, to some degree, just a little bit more loosey-goosey. But what was my point of bringing that up? I don't even remember what my point of bringing that up is. Oh, it was that you have a lot of these currencies get on the exchanges, and they have this inherent value just by existing. And so as people want to diversify their portfolios and take money from one into another. People are pumping in US dollars into different forms of cryptocurrencies. They're going into these liquidity pools that validate those assets, that just like a stock price causes the collective value of everything to rise. And then you can have the staking work in this way. So say you don't want to increase the supply of a coin, you can have the investors, so to speak, that are staking, they can get back a return on the coin by actually having more coin issued from the block reward. So instead of having the reward go to the miners, you can have the reward go to the stakers. And if the reward goes to the stakers, then the coin supply increases, but not in a visible way. So on the open market, the coin supply hasn't increased, but the number of assets that the investor has increased. So the demand does not decrease because the supply in the open market doesn't increase, but basically the collateral that the investor has increased, right? So if you had $100 and I told you, if you hold on to this $100, so let's say you have $200, and I say, if you hold on to $100 and you just keep it in this liquidity pool, I will print new money tonight and I will give you 1% or 4% of what you have put in the liquidity pool the next morning. Now, if only the people that are staking are rewarded, then again, the new money isn't going on the open market. So you're basically just funneling stock, as it were, into someone's account. They could choose to sell that, but they'll most likely not, because you're giving them a reward for not selling it. So it appears on paper that their value is increasing only because the demand stays just as high in the open market for the exchange. So anyway, there's that kind of thing going on, and I don't understand enough about this, and it does scare me. It concerns me. I'm not really aware of all the ramifications, but definitely something doesn't smell right, both on the technology side and on the investment side. But I don't think that that's where these things, where the benefit of this, it's not about the benefit of the tech that they're criticizing. It's about the freedom for people to innovate and create new ideas that can be bad ideas. I mean, it's the same argument for free speech. It's my same argument for free speech. The most important part of free speech is that we have the ability to have bad ideas that can be shot down in the marketplace of ideas. And for these people that are creating bad technology, the technology should be shut down in the marketplace of bad technology. I think their concern is that the hype is so high that when it does get shut down, the bubble will burst. And I don't know if that's actually a problem, to be honest, because we already have so much funny money in the market in so many different forms. If we lost half the crypto market in a day, and some people were upset about it, but at the end of the day, I don't really know anybody that it affected, and investors that put that money in there, they knew what they were doing. They know that investment is that you're possibly going to lose everything. That's typically why they diversify into some businesses, maybe some cryptocurrencies, maybe some bundled mortgages, etc. Right? When the interest rates go up, they put more money into the bundled mortgages. When the interest rates go down, they put more money into the stock market. When depending on what different market segments are doing, they're going to be throwing their money in different ways, and that's what investors do. So if the whole cryptocurrency market went straight to zero, which I don't think will happen because many of these tokens will go to zero, but I think that a few of them will survive regardless. Insider trading, I don't know. I don't think that, I think insider trading is when you know ahead of time what something is going to do. But again, I'm not a financial expert. But just summing this up one last time, because I've been dragging on here much longer than I thought I would. I think it's worth giving this a read. I think that the points that they bring up are completely valid. I don't think that every possible iteration of any blockchain technology, allowing for different trade-offs, I don't think that all of the possible technologies are all completely useless. I think that maybe 99.9% of them are completely useless. But I really do fear. I think the one key point that the people in the Web3 space have right, as a small group of concerned thinkers like the original Satoshi white paper type thinkers, is that we need a borderless way to exchange value that consenting adults can participate in, that isn't constricted by the growing and ever more centralizing world banks and world governments. I think that that is correct. If that's even going to be possible in the political landscape, I don't know. But I think that's one point to their benefit. And I think all these criticisms about 99.9% of those technologies, and I don't think that they make a necessarily unequivocal, all of it is bad. I don't think that, yeah, so it's for just blockchain technology is poorly suited for just about every purpose. And I think that's well said. The fallacies, ambiguous, but this is so vague and ambiguous in itself. There's no clear call to action. It's just, and maybe it is virtue signaling. Maybe it is just trying to prime the pump to get legislation through. Although I see Bruce Schneier at least as an apolitical figure. I could be mistaken about that, but I've never noticed him in any sort of activism. He's talked about good tech and bad tech, and he makes sense. His arguments are well reasoned. But yeah, so that's my 2 cents expanded into 26 minutes plus, is just that we do need people to be able to do dumb things. And there's so little baby and so much bathwater, but still, I don't want to throw that little baby out with that ocean of bathwater. I think education is important. I think the big problem with education in this space is that no one who's peddling it knows what it is or what it does. And it's so stupid to explain what a blockchain is that when you explain it, I think people just don't believe it. And that's kind of a problem. If you say it's just a game, like essentially it's a number guessing game that computers play with each other, and then they record the who got the right guess, and then they take the previous number and they include that as part of the rules for making the next guess. And that's why it's a chain, because the previous number is always included as part of the next guessing game in the series. That sounds so dumb that people can't believe it. They can't wrap their heads around. You have an entire $100 billion industry based around computers playing a mathematical guessing game with each other. That just doesn't. It's so absurd. It's one of those things where the truth is stranger than fiction. It's easier for people to believe that there's some sort of, great technological advantage than it is for them to believe that, yeah, it's really just a simple guessing game that literally any college student could implement, and a college degree is certainly not required to implement it. It is literally the sort of thing that, given the parameters, you could write a program that does it in a weekend. Well, and given, a language like Go, perhaps with networking in the standard library and whatnot. Anyway, so that all said, if you've got any questions or comments, feel free to leave them now. I didn't even mean to be on this long. I just thought while this topic is hot and while it's on my mind, I'd go ahead and rattle off a few thoughts. And we will have another blockchain debate. I don't know exactly when, but I think that Matt and Carl and Ryan and I will get back on again. So let me go ahead and give you a link to this. Thanks for tuning in. Consider a like, sub, follow if you want to. If you felt that this was entertaining or useful, feel free to ask me questions. I would love to answer anything that I can, and I'll try to be honest about where my biases are and where my gaps in knowledge are. I did walk away from Cryptopia first appalled because it seemed like they wanted to be teenagers at a rave, but their companies paid for their tickets so they couldn't. More so the people on stage than the people in the hallways. But I actually, putting that aside, I actually, in the conversations, visiting all the booths, I realized that I did learn quite a bit. And I'm now, in retrospect, I'm actually glad that I went, even though I was kind of really had some mixed feelings while I was there. But, and I met some people that hopefully I'll continue conversations with. Have you seen similar tech bubbles in the past over a particular solution like this? No, I have not. Tech is moving so fast. It's normally technological change occurs over generations. Now we're having technological change that occurs over weekends. So no, I have never seen a tech bubble like this. And it seems that there was something kind of somewhat similar, but I don't know. And sometimes bubbles last for a long time, and sometimes products that aren't very useful are very catchy. I mean, look at TikTok, right? It is the first social media, which I believe in truth is designed to cause mental health disorders. I don't think that it's a happenstance. I think that it is intended to help create more unrest in the United States as part of its design. Now, that's all what it is, but when you look at that, that's what I think it is. And maybe it'll be here longer than Vine or Snapchat. Snapchat looked like it was going to be around, and then after 2 years or something, it kind of fell off the map. Vine seemed pretty cool for the 6 months. Now hardly anybody remembers it. I think there was something right before TikTok. Periscope was cool for a weekend. So social media, I think, has been a huge bubble, similar to the blockchain bubble. If you remember, Hey, there's been a lot of stuff that's got investment that you can't figure out what in the world people were investing in it for, but a lot of it's scattershot. It's just, we don't know what's going on. We don't understand it. We like passionate people. If somebody's really passionate, I mean, I had a buddy that didn't really have a product and got, I think, around $4 or $5 million of investment just by wearing orange pants and having an eccentric personality, and saying that his database mirrored the patterns of photons. And yeah, anyway, so I'm going to sign off. Again, thanks for joining in. Feel free to drop comments, questions, etc. down below. And I hope this was helpful and useful in some way. I hope it gave some insights. But I'll catch you later. Adios.